Welcome to East Alabama Today, featuring topics, events, and interesting people from all over East Alabama. Hosted by Carl Brady. Now, let's get right to the show. Here's Carl Brady.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into East Alabama Today. I'm Carl Brady. Thanks for being with us on our program today. We're back in the TV24 studios for today's show, and we'll tell you all about that coming up in just a moment. Let me remind you, though, that we always want to know about the things going on in your community here on East Alabama Today. You guys are our eyes and ears out on the street, so let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods by sending me an email, cbrady@tv24.tv. That's the best way to get in touch with me if you have things going on in your community, fairs, festivals, special events for your nonprofit organization or for your community organization or church, anything like that that you'd like to talk about, then send me the email, cbrady@tv24.tv. We also want to know about the interesting people who live in your community. Maybe you know someone who's a writer, an artist, or a musician, and you think they'd be a great guest for the program. Those are exactly the folks we want to talk to, so be sure to send me an email about them as well. And remember, you can always go back online and watch archived shows of East Alabama Today. If you happen to want to look at a show again, review some information you saw in a show, or if you just enjoyed one that you want to go back and watch again, you can do that online on our website at tv24.tv. Go to the on-demand section and look for East Alabama Today, and there you'll find a whole series of archived East Alabama Today shows that you can watch at your convenience. Today we're going to be talking to Calhoun County District Judge Chris McIntyre. Chris is up for re-election, and he'll get started with the Republican primary on June 5th. You're going to meet Chris in just a moment, so stay with us. Welcome back into East Alabama Today. Again, I'm Carl Brady. Thanks for being with us on today's program. It's political season here in East Alabama today. We have the primaries coming up June 5th, and of course the general election coming up in November. We have a lot of races around the state that are going to be up for grabs, and a lot of local races here in East Alabama are going to be up for grabs as well. Our guest today is Calhoun County District Court Judge Chris McIntyre. Chris, welcome to the program. Always good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Carl.
We had you on when you were running for the first time, and you obviously won that election. You're a district court judge here in Calhoun County. Just tell us a little bit about the last 5 years and how that's gone for you.
Well, it's definitely been a whirlwind. You know, I deal with all the criminal cases here in Calhoun County, up to my elbows, day in, day out. I feel like I make a difference. That's why I ran for the job, and so I feel like I have been.
It's important to note that you're a Calhoun County native. You're from Alexandria. You lived in Alexandria and Jacksonville. Talk about that local raising and how that has affected you.
Well, I was born in Alexandria. Was there until I was in the 5th grade. Then I moved to Jacksonville. Graduated from Jacksonville High School in 1997. Went off to college at UAB for my undergraduate degree. Got that in psychology. And then went to law school and graduated from there in 2005, the Cumberland School of Law at Samford. After I got done, my first job out of law school was going up to Morgan County to clerk for the circuit judges up there. Did that for about a year, and I think that's where I decided I'd love to be a judge one day. I saw what they did, saw how they help people, and that's just what I really wanted to do. But I came back down here, got a job with DA's office, worked for 3 years under Joe Hubbard, went out into private practice after that, spent about 4 years there dealing with all manner of cases, family court, criminal, wills and probate. At the same time, I was the prosecutor for the city of Jacksonville. And right about that time, it was time to, another judge had stepped down. One judge got appointed, and I thought I might try and run against him, and I was lucky enough to have won. Yeah,
and that you took office, took the bench in January of 2013, so you've been a judge ever since that point in time. Now let's talk a little bit about the makeup of the court system? Because I know this, for people who don't get involved in the court system, like me, I try to stay as far away from the court system as possible. It can be difficult to understand the different layers of circuits and districts and things like that. So you tell us about the district judgeship and how that relates to the circuit judges and those kind of things.
Okay. Well, I just take it for granted because I work in the system, day in, day out. But like you said, most people don't understand quite what each judge does in our system. In Calhoun County, we have 3 district judges, of which I'm the district criminal judge. We have a district civil judge as well as a district family judge. So I deal with all criminal. One deals with all the civil. One deals with family, like family law, like divorces, child custody, things like that. We also have 5 circuit judges. 3 of those deal with all of our jury, criminal, and civil work. One of them does all non-jury civil and criminal work, and again, one of them does all family court law. So that's kind of what we all do in a nutshell.
How does what kind of cases go to the circuit, and which ones are handled by the district? What's the delineation there?
Well, in my particular position, I deal with all of the felony cases that occur in the county at the preliminary hearing level. If I decide there's probable cause to send a case to the grand jury, then it gets sent there for indictment. Then it gets filtered out to a circuit judge from there. I also deal with all the misdemeanor cases that occur out in the county, not the cities, because they usually have their own court that deals with their misdemeanors. So I hold trials on those as well. I also deal with all the traffic cases made by Calhoun County deputies and state troopers. So.
What you mentioned bond hearings and things like that. People are always curious about how that part of the process works.
Okay.
And there are a variety of, some people get huge bonds, some people will get smaller bonds, and there's surety bonds and cash bonds and all these different terminologies.
Right.
Help us to understand that a little bit.
When someone is arrested, first of all, you look at the class of a crime that they've been charged with. We have 3 classes of felonies, A, B, and C's. We also have 3 classes of misdemeanors, A, B, and C's. There's a bond schedule that we go by. We are allowed to delineate from those from that bond schedule if we so look at all the facts and the what happened, and we can go higher, we can go lower. Of course, the highest bonds we try and reserve for murders, violent crimes, things like that. Also. Trafficking in drugs, manufacturing, those kind of cases get high bonds as well. But there's no set. We don't always have to go by that bond schedule. It's discretionary up to the judge.
Right, and the circumstances have a lot to do with those decisions.
Right.
Now, you also mentioned, when you send a case to a grand jury for indictment, that's something that's confusing as well, because sometimes you'll hear so-and-so's been charged with this crime and they're on trial, and then every once in a while you'll hear they've been bound over to the grand jury for the grand jury to decide whether there's an indictment necessary. That's part of your job as a district judge to decide what's going to the grand jury, and how does that work?
Well, when someone is first charged with a crime, felony-wise, there's a standard of proof that has to be met, and it's probable cause. It's less than beyond reasonable doubt, which is necessary for conviction. But it's more than just a reasonable suspicion. So everyone is entitled to a hearing on their felony case, and a lot of defendants will simply waive their case on to the grand jury for indictment, but some people, a good amount, do ask for a hearing, and then it's up to me to decide whether that probable cause standard has been met. It's a low threshold, so usually it has. But every now and then, I have dismissed cases because I did not feel that threshold had been met.
Right.
So.
You hear a lot of cases, and we're going to get to that a little bit more later. But in 2017, just last year alone, you had 3,000 felony cases. So that's about 250 felony cases a month. And in the misdemeanor side of things, over 5,000 misdemeanor cases. So you were handling those about at a rate of about 450 a month. That's a huge volume. So in addition to the work that you have to put in to make sure that you keep up that pace, you got a lot of people who help you as well.
Right. We're lucky and blessed in Calhoun County to have a great clerk's office. They do a magnificent job of getting the cases set so that I can get into court and deal with them. I have a judicial assistant that is definitely overworked and underpaid. She does so much for me, makes my job so much easier.
Yeah.
Without her, I'd be lost. Just recently, she was affected by the tornado, and it's the first time I can remember that she wasn't able to come into work, but she knew that that might be a possibility, and she got me ready, the day before the tornado happened.
Mm-hmm.
So even though she wasn't able to come to work, I was, and everything was ready, and I was able to do my job.
Already,
so,
everything was in place, ready to go, and you were able to follow right along.
And the overworked and underpaid also, that applies to the clerk's office as well.
Yeah.
They just they do so much work. They do so much for me and all the other judges, and just can't thank them enough.
All right, now we're going to take a quick commercial break. Be back in just a moment to visit more with District Judge Chris McIntyre of Calhoun County. We'll be right back. We're back on the special edition of East Alabama Today. My guest is Judge Chris McIntyre, District Court Judge in Calhoun County, and Chris handles the criminal side of things there, the District Judge's office. And Chris, we were talking about the number of cases that you handle, 250 a month in criminal court, 450 a month in the misdemeanor side. And over the last 5 years, you've been able to, I think there was a backlog when you took the bench, but you've been able to dispose of well over 25,000 cases in the 5 years since you were elected and took the bench in 2013. Talk about that. That must take a considerable amount of time, and you must be in the courtroom doing stuff all the time.
Well, I wish I could take all the credit for it, but there have been some great advancements in computer technology and what we call our AliCourt system. Mm-hmm. So that makes it considerably easier. The judge who was in my position prior to me taking the bench, he had to write everything down. You have a bad check case where someone has 20 bad check cases. You'd have to handwrite an order 20 times, and now we can just go in and do what we call batch orders, and just the whole process is just so much smoother. Mm-hmm. I'm able to do some things that the prior judge wasn't able to do, and that's it wasn't his fault, but it's just the constraints of the time that he had. For example, I'm able to do what we call probation hearings now. When someone's committed a crime, they're put on probation, and now I can hold them accountable for it. Mm-hmm. Where I have hearings. Say I have hearings once a month for those probation delinquents. That means they're not paying their monies, they're not paying their victims back, they're not reporting to probation, that kind of thing. So, like I said, technology has just made things a lot better these days.
Yeah. Now, the real world court system is not like an episode of Judge Judy. You and I talked about that off camera
right.
a little bit. These hearings don't get settled in a 30-minute TV show time slot. Sometimes these things take time. Talk about that. Sometimes you can make your decision right there instantly, but sometimes you need to think about it a little bit and study up on things.
Right. I tell people that my job is not judge duty. I don't administer drive-through justice. You know, if I have a trial on a misdemeanor case, you know, I've got to consider all the evidence. I've got to consider case law, but you know, the decision I make has real-world consequences for these people. You know, whether I find them guilty or not guilty. A lot of times, I can administer a quick decision if the evidence is overwhelming, one way or the other. But sometimes, I have to think about it because I've got to get it right.
Yeah.
And you know, to convict someone of a crime any crime is not something that I take lightly. And so if I hear a case and I am not sure, I will go back to my office. I'll think about it, deliberate about it, pray about it, and I'll come back later and make the best decision I can.
Talk about the weight of that responsibility. You know, like you said, every decision you make has real-world consequences in somebody's life, whether you're convicting them or not convicting them. So, you know, I know if I'm in the courtroom, I want the judge to feel the weight of that responsibility so that they're making responsible decisions.
Right. It's it can be the weight can be crushing sometimes because I've got you know, these people's whole future in my hands. It's whether they can ever carry a gun again if it's a domestic violence case. It's whether they can ever get a good job again. So those kind of decisions weigh on me, and I do the best I can. Am I perfect? Have I always made the correct decision? Absolutely not. There have been cases where I look back and think, could I have done something different? But you know, I do the best I can. I'm human. I'm fallible, and I just do my best.
And let's talk a little bit more about the number of cases that you're seeing in the organization. And you credited a lot of that to your judicial assistant and to the use of computers and Alicourt and things like that. But you still have to be really consistently organized to handle that many cases and to keep it organized in your mind as well as to what's happening, where you're going, who you're talking to, and not let one case you know flood over into another one or something like that sometimes.
Right. You know, I hold court. You know, I have major courts 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Throughout the week, I have also hearings sprinkled in there as well. Those will be called special sets, whether it be a preliminary hearing for a felony, or a misdemeanor trial, or a bond revocation, or a probation revocation, or something like that. And so you have to be organized. I think that I am. You know, you get done with court, you go back to your office, you start doing orders because you can't do them from the bench. I get my assistant to do orders as well that I've told her how to do. So it's a lot. And
talking about setting bonds and things like that, you know, there is, if I'm not mistaken, you know, once you are arrested, there is a certain amount of time where they have to get you in front of a judge and get your bond. They can't just hold you indefinitely. How does that mess with your schedule? You've got this many, this many cases, and then all of a sudden the DA comes in, or the sheriff, or somebody comes in and says, we need a bond hearing, or we need a bond set on this guy right now. How does that work into the system?
Well, I personally am on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The clerk's office has my number. The police have my number. But as for those bonds, a good majority of them are set by the clerk's office. I get involved when they need me to.
Okay. Well, we're going to take another commercial break and come back in just a minute to wrap things up. And we're going to talk a little bit about Chris's family when we come back here on East Alabama Today. Well, welcome back in our final segment of East Alabama Today. Again, our guest has been Chris McIntyre, District Judge for Calhoun County and candidate to keep that position in the upcoming election this year. the Republican primary coming up on June 5th. Chris, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about your family.
My wife Suzanne supports me 100%. Our two sons, Hunter and Sawyer, and our new twins, Connor and Reese. That's why I get up in the morning and do this every day. I want to make this county safer for them, safer for everybody out there. So,
right.
But they're the main reason that I want to keep keep doing what I do, and so.
All right. Well, that sounds good. And before we go, I noticed a lot of your campaign literature has a phone number on it and an email address, and it's an open invitation.
Right.
If you have something you'd like to talk about, feel free to give me a call, leave a message, send an email. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. My email address for my campaign is McIntyrecampaign@gmail.com. Feel free to give me a call at 256-225-4742. If I can talk to you, I will. I can't talk about pending cases,
right.
But I can talk to you just about anything else, any concerns, questions anybody has about what I do or what any of us do up at the courthouse and how it works.
All right, well, sounds good. Chris, thank you very much for being with us on the show.
All right.
And folks, we want to thank you as well here on East Alabama Today. Have a good afternoon.